Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is the Blue Line Blast podcast. I'm your host, Jim Biringer, Matthew Blittner. We're back again. NHL season is underway. Also, to those who celebrated happy belated Canadian Thanksgiving, the U.S. version's coming up next month. Don't forget your clocks go back in a couple of weeks. But the NHL season is here. Matthew, what's up, buddy?
Not much, Jim. We've got 1 week of the season. We've got some big news. We've got some little news. We've got some overreactions. We've got a great guest. And again, as you've mentioned, happy belated Canadian Thanksgiving. I know Canadians out there feel that that's the real Thanksgiving. I'm going to say I disagree with that. But I don't want to cause too much trouble already. I mean, we're only, a minute into this week's podcast. But Jim, something that is causing trouble that I think we can start off with. Montreal signed Lane Hutson, the reigning Calder Trophy winner. And for those of you out there who may have forgotten, Calder Trophy is the Rookie of the Year. So the reigning Calder Trophy winner to an 8-year deal worth $8.85 million per year. Jim, I know the salary cap is going up over the next few years, but what in what's name are we doing giving a guy with 1 year in the league? 1 year. Have we not heard flash in the past? 1 year in the league. $8.85 million a year. Come on.
I mean, do you want me to do it from the start? Because I'm going to just take the shot from the blue line right now.
Take the clapper from the blue line. Let the Hutser go right now.
I mean, I'm just going to be honest. I could say the same thing about Luke Hughes and Jackson Lacombe getting $9 million a season too.
But they've at least played more than one season.
Yeah, and I think Lane Hutson's better than both of them, and I'm not biased about that. I think he is, and I think he's going to be better than both of them. But here's the thing. This is what happens when a GM sticks to his guns and decides that a salary structure and winning is more important than paying and doing everything else. Look, Lane Hutson saw what Connor McDavid did in Edmonton and said, you know what? I want to get this deal done. Now, there were reports that he rejected an 8-year, $9 million deal, a lot of deferred money. He didn't want the deferred money. His salary bonus, his signing bonuses are like $11 million through like the first 4 years, 5 years of this thing. It is ridiculous. But the fact of the matter is he's the one that wanted to get it done. He put winning above what he could have gotten, which was close to $10 million. Probably could have got more than that. We know Cale Makar is going to reset the market too. We know Quinn Hughes is going to reset the market as well. But if you think about it, the Montreal Canadiens have locked up their core through the 2030-31 season on very, very team-friendly deals because Kent Hughes, the GM, which we'll talk about his extension, same with Jeff Gorton, the executive vice president of hockey operations up there in Montreal, they have been around these teams where players take less because they want to win, less than market value. So while we all thought Jackson Lacombe's deal and Luke Hughes' deal at $9 million AAV was going to affect Lane Hutson, it was really the Connor McDavid deal that did it for both sides, and they get it locked in. And I like the deal for Hutson. I like the deal for the Canadiens. It's going to age real well. And I think the fact of the matter is, you know what? You saw it against Chicago on Saturday night. His game was a lot better than it was in the first two games.
Yeah, look, obviously Lane Hutson loves the deal. What young kid's not going to love getting $8.85 million on average over the next 8 years? Come on, first and foremost.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, you're right. I mean, it's a fair point.
I do agree with you. I think he's going to be better than Lacombe. I don't know if I think he's going to be better from an offensive standpoint than Luke Hughes, but definitely better defensively than Luke Hughes. So I guess since they are defensemen, I guess we have to say if he's better defensively than, and that sort of is the important aspect of their job description. But Jim, I can't get over the fact, and again, not saying that Hughes and Lacombe necessarily deserved $9 million apiece, but they at least had a little bit more of a track record. I remember it was just a few years ago, and yes, I know COVID, flat cap, it skewed things drastically. But even before COVID, the $7 to $9 million salary, average annual range was reserved for perennial all-stars. Okay, there's no disputing that. It was reserved for perennial all-stars, and there were a couple oddities in there. There's always going to be a few, but that's what it was for the most part. Jim, how many Calder Trophy winners, how many Calder Trophy finalists, how many people who were in the Calder Trophy conversation have been flash in the pans throughout the history of the NHL? Numerous. And we're saying that Lane Hutson is automatically worth, and again, I know TV money, the cap going up. We're saying he's worth just under $9 million off of 1 year. Jim, look, I know that Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton, and as you alluded to, they both signed new extensions and they're building something the right way in Montreal. But how? How are you giving $8.85 million to a kid who's played 1 year in the league? It does not make sense to me. I know they want to have long-term, have him locked up long-term, have cap consistency, have certainty. But there's something very wrong, in my estimation, that we're now handing out contracts like that. It's like in baseball. You give, you give a guy who comes up, has one great year, like Julio Rodriguez, and all of a sudden you sign him to a 12-year deal worth $300 million. And then, lo and behold, he comes crashing back down to earth. Not to say the same thing didn't happen with Lane Hutson, but it's attitude. There's no reason that they should have given that deal to him. Not right now.
I mean, I'm going to have to disagree because we've seen guys play less than 100 games in the league and get the same amount of dollars. I mean, look, if we're going to go by tiers, then maybe we should have, contracts that are sliding because as the player gets better, the money should go up. But the thing is, Cale Makar signed his $9 million deal years ago, and he's going to hit it big now. And, now guys are making equal of that and may not be on his level. And I think Lane Hutson, he's the anchor of that defense back there along with Noah Dobson. He just can play both sides. Again, he set records last year as a rookie defenseman in the NHL. Something guys aren't supposed to do because defensemen aren't supposed to come in the league and be like that. And he's a big reason why the Canadiens made the playoffs last year outside of Alexander Carrier. And then you have Patrick Laine early on as well. But I think there's a belief because, again, Kent Hughes said it. He's like, we wouldn't be offering you 8 years if we didn't believe in you. And I think a lot of people were surprised at the number because, 8.85 times 8. I think a lot of people thought it was going to be a 4 or 5 year deal at that money so he could hit it big again. But Lane Hutson's game's only going to get better. And that's what a lot of these contracts are. We see the same thing. I mean, look, we could talk about, you want to talk about, comparables. How come Darnell Nurse is getting paid $9 million? Is he a $9 million defenseman? No.
Absolutely not.
No. So, again, when he signed that contract, good on the player for getting that money and good on the agent. Bad on the Oilers for giving him that money because he's not that type of defenseman. He's not worth that kind of money. But Lane Hutson, to me, as I project his stats and I project it, now I'm not going to say he's going to get 66 points again and 60 assists, but I think as he continues to age and develop in the National Hockey League, this is just going to be a steal for the Montreal Canadiens.
Okay, so there's something that you just said that I want to go after here. And again, there are points that I agree with you on. I think that Lane Hutson is an excellent defender, excellent player. His $8.85 million puts him in the top, I believe it's top 12 average annual values for defensemen. Forget about forwards because we know how the market gets skewed. In like the top 12 average annual value for defensemen across the entire National Hockey League. Are we saying that Lane Hutson, after 1 year, is already a top 12 defenseman? And, by the way, you yourself just said you don't know if he's getting back to 66 points.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's fair. I mean, look, I think he's going to get 66 points. I don't know. He might. I don't think he will, but he could get high 50s. But again,
we're saying that high 50s automatically makes you top 12 at your position in the league.
I think his overall game, I could put him in the top 12 right now as a defenseman right now, as a young guy. Absolutely.
I vehemently disagree on that. But you know what? Good on Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton to, at least stick to their guns and try to build what they think is going to be reasonable. Because let's be honest, Kent Hughes was a former player agent, right? Yep. And Jeff Gorton was coming from New York where they had the letter. There was the Rangers didn't seem to be ascending. They seemed to still have some weaknesses. Jim Dolan ran out of patience. The Rangers had their flaws exposed of being a soft team physically. So Dolan didn't like that. So he wanted Gorton gone. But Davidson wasn't willing to fire him. So he got the shaft too. Good on them for figuring a way to build from the ground up in Montreal, which in hockey, I mean, to build from the ground up in Montreal is an amazing thing. But I don't know. I can see praise for them, but I have to say that the Lane Hutson deal, and again, it would turn out to be a steal. I wouldn't have given that to him so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, but you could say that about a lot of players around the league too, right? Like, again, I'm not trying to pick on the guys that just signed in Anaheim and New Jersey, but I could say the same thing about those guys because you're saying their AAVs are what, top 10? Are they top 10 defensemen right now?
And again, I believe we discussed this last week. I agreed with you. How are we giving that much? How are they giving that much to them? That off of 2 years, 2.5 years, in the case of Luke Hughes, coming off of that type of thing. I don't think that any player, barring a Connor McDavid, really should be getting that amount so soon. It's just, even if you win the Calder, like let's say a Cale Makar, let's say you win the Norris, let's say you win the Stanley Cup all in your first 2 years, 3 years, like you have to.
I don't even think Scott Gomez got that kind of money when he won the Calder and a Stanley Cup in the same year, and he was an all-star.
Right, but that's how salaries end up exploding out of control. You have to have a more steady growth than an explosive growth.
Well, I think that's where they're looking at with this $8.85 million, right? Because let's say play the hypothetical game here with Hutson for a minute. Say he duplicated last season this year, right? And they get into July 1st next year. Well, now maybe other guys have signed. Maybe Cale Makar has, hit his extension number. Say, we don't know about Quinn Hughes, but we'll use the example of Cale Makar. Say he signs to 15. Lane Hutz could be like, well, you give me 10, give me 10-5. And I don't think the Canadiens wanted to go that far because of their salary structure, because they got all those guys lined up perfectly, and it allows them to add moving forward. They're going on potential with him, and I think the potential is already there. Like I said, they believe in him. If they didn't believe in him, he probably would have got like a 3-4 year bridge deal, and then they would have gone from there. They believe in this kid. The talent is there. He's only getting better. I think it's reasonable because if the cap goes up and guys pass him and he continues to be who he is, everybody's going to be like, this guy's grossly underpaid, like Patrice Bergeron was for years. Like so many guys were. But again, I point to the Connor McDavid deal because he takes $12.5 million, the same he was making on a 2-year deal, because he wants to win. And I think that's because Hutson knows he wants to win. He wants to do things the right way in Montreal. And as you said, a 5-year rebuild when we get to the playoffs this year, after they made the Stanley Cup final with that group of core, Gorton comes in. They basically tell the fans, hey guys, it's not going to be pretty for a while. You're going to have to accept it. Usually the hockey crazed market that is Montreal doesn't accept it. They accepted it. Took a little bit. They make the right moves at the draft, drafting the right players, making the right trades. Now they've set themselves up for success. That's great management right there.
Again, not saying it's not great management. I'm just saying I disagree with giving, outside of a Connor McDavid, I disagree with giving any young player who only has 1 year in the league such a large amount. That's my personal belief, and that's for any sport. Again, I used Julio Rodriguez as an example with the Seattle Mariners before.
Didn't Brock Faber get like 8.5 after like one season?
I didn't agree with that then either. Okay, you want to show what you've got, and you want to be warranted. You have to show consistently that you can do something. 1 year of doing something, no matter how historic it is not showing that you can consistently do it. If you can do it 2, 3, 4 years, that's consistent. Doing it over 1 year is not consistent. Jim, I've said my piece on this.
I think we could end it like this. Welcome to the new age of the NHL.
Yes. welcome to the new age of the NHL. And Jim, in keeping with the new age of the NHL, we have a new season about to start in earnest in New Jersey with the reigning Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, two-time defending champs, coming into New Jersey on Thursday. And so that will be the Devils' home opener after they've already started on the road. And we're going to be joined by a friend of the show, friend of yours, friend of mine, friend of all hockey, from the Hockey News, covering the Florida Panthers, Dave Dwork, on the opposite side of our non-existent sponsor break. So, Jim, we'll be back after this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from our non-existent sponsor break. I promise you one of these days that's going to actually be an existent sponsor. We're joined now by friend of the show who we teased right before the break, Dave Dwork, the ace reporter for the Hockey News covering the Florida Panthers. Dave, welcome back to the show. Friend of the show, you've been here before. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Matt. Jim, good to see you guys. Thank you for having me back on.
Always a pleasure. Dave, the team that you covered down south over there, Florida Panthers, a lot of people thought they were going to maybe struggle out of the gate a little bit, what with the injuries to some key players. But as of right this minute, they're not struggling.
No, it's been pretty good for the Panthers so far. I think they've really leaned into the systems that they've been learning and putting to muscle memory over the last few years under Paul Maurice. And, one of the big topics when discussing this team, even going back to the last couple of years, has been their depth is one of the huge strengths. And right now they're really leaning into that. You mentioned the injuries, no Sasha Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk, Tomas Nosek was out before the season started. Now Dmitry Kulikov is done out of the lineup as well. And they just keep churning along. So, hopefully the injury bug starts to bite somewhere else and gives this team a rest a little while so they can try to get their stuff together and get some consistency and maintain. But overall, you've got to, if you're the Panthers, considering the players that they're missing, you've got to be happy with the result thus far.
David, first of all, great to see you, buddy. It was a pleasure last week, as always, down there. But, from what we were seeing in those games, what do you think the Panthers are going to be more like? Is it going to be like the first two games where they, had to win it in a third period? Or is it going to be more of what we saw against the Ottawa Senators, where it was a goal fest and they had 6 different goal scorers?
I think that 3-game block is indicative of what we're going to see. And that's probably more close games than we're used to with the Panthers, as opposed to the blowout type wins that we've seen more of over the last year and a half. But this is a team that Paul Maurice says they've been saying for years that 2-1 filthy is their comfort zone. That's where they want to be when they're winning those 2-1 filthy games. So while it maybe isn't ideal and a little bit more exciting when you're tight games in the third period, and as you can see, because you were at both of those games, they were maybe not as tight as the score would indicate. I think both games, whether it was Spencer Knight and opening night or Dan Vladar for the Flyers in game 2, they both goaltenders played really well and kept the score a little bit closer than maybe it could have been. So I think if you're the Panthers, you're pretty happy with the way things are, but I don't think they're going to be assuming that they're going to have easier wins this year. I think they are knowing that they're going to have some tougher third periods to come.
Great point about, having to be a bit closer, having to have tougher third periods. It's Dave. And on that, the Panthers have a back-to-back coming up. They've got the Red Wings, who, maybe they're on the peripheral of the playoff picture, of the wild card picture. Then they've got the Devils, who should, in all reasonableness, be a playoff team this year. They've got Vegas coming up, not this weekend, but next. Where do you see how the Panthers stack up against some of those teams, like New Jersey, like Vegas, in terms of their one-to-one play? Because normally, the Panthers can play which way. They can play the skill game, they can play the fast game, or they can play, the grinding way. But if they're going to have more closer games, if they're going to have more close third periods, how are they going to be able to find that niche? Because you can't keep being so diversified.
I think that they're going to lean into the playoff type style that you've seen a lot of them. Get it in deep, wear down the other team's defense. Because in those type games, you're not necessarily as reliant on the skill game as you are just letting your team game take over, letting the cycles, letting everybody run their routes, and letting all that kind of fall into place. And just relying on the 5-man team game, which is basically what their whole defensive system is predicated on, is everybody just trusting where the other guy is going to be. So I would think that they're going to try to lean more into their styles and their systems than trying to match up, even when they're on the road, even when, they don't have the first change or anything like that. I think that I would expect them more so now than ever to really kind of lean into what they've been taught, what they know, and kind of stick to that.
Speaking of that defensive style of game, and I want to go to a guy that we're seeing a little bit more offensive production from. I know it's only a few games, but the play of Anton Lundell, we know what we're going to get defensively from him. But Paul Maurice talked about it Saturday. The expectations for him are high, and he has those high expectations as well. Do we foresee him taking that step offensively this year?
He's certainly going to get the chance. I think the skill, it's not like he's going to have a big breakout skill year, because we've seen over the last 5 seasons how that's developed and his confidence has grown. I think why we might see it more so this year is just because the opportunity is there for him, but maybe more so now than ever with Barkov out. And that Barkov is going to be out for probably the entire regular season. Lundell, it's funny because before the season started, when we were talking in training camp, he's locked up through the end of the decade, as is Barkov, as is Reinhart, or as is Bennett, excuse me. So I asked him, I was like, dude, a lot of centers kind of gauge their growth and their success rate on where they are stacking up in their lineup. And you're in a logjam of centermen. Like, it's not like you can dream about bumping over Sasha or maybe Sam, but how do you gauge your game when you're not necessarily getting that ice time and getting those opportunities? So to see, a couple weeks later, all of a sudden he is that guy. He's got to be the Florida's number 1 center, basically. And the way that he played in the playoffs on that line with Luosterainen and Marchand certainly showed that they're capable of playing like a number 1 line against some of the best that the league has to offer. But I think what we've seen already in terms of all of his points so far have been on the power play, which, not knocking him 5-on-5. He's an excellent 5-on-5 player. They don't call him Baby Barkov for no reason, but just getting those extra opportunities on special teams and seeing that production already starting to come in. Those are the clues that would lead me to think that breakout season offensively is coming.
Well said, Dave. And, as we're talking about individual players here, obviously winning teams work from the net out. And so Sergei Bobrovsky has been rock behind everyone for the Panthers during this run. He's 37 now. He's in the last year of his contract. And while the Panthers have basically locked up everybody, whether it's role player, non-role player, they've pretty much locked up the entire team for at least the next 5 years. What are you hearing on Bobrovsky's situation? Are they talking contract extension? If so, how long might they be thinking?
So far, I haven't heard much on that front. I know we asked Bob about it before the season, and he kind of said, I'll deal with that when the time comes. I'm focused on the here and the now. And, he said gave you a very Bob answer. I know Bob and his family are very happy in South Florida. Since he moved here in 2019, him and his wife have had 2 children. They've established themselves in the community. They're very happy here. They've got a strong religious foundation here in South Florida as well. That's very important to them as a family. So I would think that if Bob plans on continuing his career, which no reason to think he wouldn't, just based off of how he's playing right now, how he's acting, he seems very happy in his life. So if he chooses that he wants to continue his career, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him and the Panthers come to an agreement. Obviously, something shorter term, depending on what he's looking for. But this is also the team that just gave 37-year-old Brad Marchand a 6-year extension. So I wouldn't say anything's off the table necessarily. Obviously, with goaltenders, it's a little bit different, and they rarely play into their 40s in the NHL. And I'm talking like once a generation, like, Flower, Brodeur, it's super duper rare when you see a guy get that deep into their career. But with Bob, I also think that, just in terms of falling in line with, as you mentioned, the team-friendly deals, whether you're a Sam Reinhart or whether you're a Jonah Gadovich, everybody's probably taking a little bit less than they could on the open market to stay with the Panthers. And Sergei Bobrovsky, if anybody's been a team guy over the last few years, it's been Bob. So I would not be surprised to see him fall into line with that at all. So should he decide if what he wants is to continue his career, his game is right there. No reason to think that he wouldn't stay with Florida. They've been already limiting his play over the last few years, keeping him to that 50 to 55 range during the regular season, just to kind of protect him for the playoff run. So it's all been building and working towards this direction anyway. So if that's what Bob wants, I would expect that to happen. When it happens, probably summer. I just kind of thinking back to the way that Bob's done his deals in the past. I can't think of a time where he did anything outside the summer, just because his focus is always very, tunnel visioned on the season. But I'd be shocked if this turned into anything more than a minor thing, just based off of my personal feeling that all sides are happy together, want to continue to keep it going. And this is the team where that kind of magic can happen all the time.
Speaking of other contract issues, and let's talk about this one because it's regards to the salary cap, playoff salary cap, and LTIR, because the Florida Panthers have yet to put Alexander Barkov on LTIR, whether it's the season ending LTIR, or regular one, because they're operating right now like he is there, and they're operating like he will come back. Do you expect, and when do you expect, if they were to do it, when do you think that would come?
With Barkov, right now, to my knowledge, he, Tkachuk, and Nosek are all on LTIR, but not season ending. Obviously, that wouldn't be the case for Tkachuk or Nosek. We already know that they're expected back, December, January to be back on the ice in that time frame. With Barkov, I think I'd be shocked actually at this point if they put him anywhere close, on season ending LTIR, based off the fact that they've already given him a timetable that, on the positive side, if everything goes right, he could be, skating during the regular season, 5 to 7 months. That puts him in, April-ish, right? Give or take. That's very much in play. And you guys know season-ending LTIR means, yes, you can recoup all that cap money. And in Sasha Barkov's case, $10 million, biggest cap hit on the team. But not the case with the Panthers. They'll take the fraction of that for the LTIR, the regular LTIR, the same that they're getting for Tkachuk, Nosek. If they do put Dmitry Kulikov, which right now they're still mulling what to do with his shoulder. But for the most part, fellas, I would think that based off, there's a potential chance that the Panthers could be at full strength for a playoff series this year, which, just looking at your face, brother, I can see kind of how that might go across in the NHL. Because look, even a limping Panthers team, if you want to call them limping right now because they're without such superstar power, they're still a playoff team. Like we can all agree that this Panthers team, as deep as they are without Barkov and Tkachuk, they're still a playoff team. And if they get into the playoffs at full strength, go back 3 years ago when they were an 8 seed, they snuck in and they beat down the Bruins, the historically good Bruins, on that march to the Stanley Cup. So we know what this team is capable of, particularly in the playoffs. I'm excited for the regular season, to be honest, just because as a Panther fan growing up, somebody who's followed this team forever, and they've gone through so many seasons where playoffs were a dream. So now you've had this stretch of run the last few years where the playoffs weren't necessarily a far-fetched thing. It became an expectation to where you're a Stanley Cup contender. So now this season, maybe have a little bit of fun in the regular season. Maybe, sweat out a couple January, December games against, Nashville or whoever. Get, scrape out those extra 2 points, because you never know what might happen at the end. I think it's all going to work out if you're a Panthers fan, but maybe enjoy this for a different reason than you have the last couple of years. I don't know. That's just me trying to be glass half full, guys.
Well, we certainly appreciate the optimism, Dave. And I have to say, the thought of the Panthers being at full strength and having basically Barkov and Tkachuk essentially well rested, because, even though, we don't want to call rehab, rehabbing from serious injuries being rested, but, they're not having the wear and tear of playing. Being well rested, that would be a scary thought, going into the playoffs. But again, that's, still a number of months away. Dave, we appreciate you coming out, onto the Blue Line Blast podcast again. And Jim, let's hear another word from our non-existent sponsor, and then we'll be back after the break with more. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from our second non-existent sponsor break of the show. That was a great chat before the break with our good friend and pal Dave Dwork, who does excellent work covering the Florida Panthers for the Hockey News. And now, Jim, now that we've gotten through the Panthers, we've gotten through the Devils, we talked about Lane Hutson, the Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton deals, I think it's time that we try a little something new here on the Blue Line Blast podcast. Let's have some over and under reactions, disappointments, surprises, 1 week and change through the 2025-2026 NHL hockey season. And Jim, I'm going to get us started right here, right now. Everyone said, oh, Matthew Tkachuk out for, until December, January. Oh, Alexander Barkov out for the year. Oh, they've had 2 straight long, runs, 2 deep runs, 3 deep runs, and very short off seasons. Florida Panthers aren't going to be able to sustain any type of early season success. They're going to struggle out of the gate. Jim, as of the recording of this podcast, the Florida Panthers are in first place in the Atlantic Division. Oh, and by the way, they are one of the top offensive teams in the National Hockey League. Jim, all that, the King is dead. The King's not dead. He's very much alive. The Florida Panthers are still a real deal 1 week into the hockey season.
Yeah, I mean, it's a well-oiled machine down in Florida, being down there for the first 3 games to start the season, down for opening night and against the Flyers, and then the Ottawa Senators come to town on the Saturday. You look at it, it's just a well-oiled machine. Guys come in and out of the lineup. It's next man up mentality. Anton Lundell stepped up really well offensively for this team. He's shooting the puck, has more confidence than he did. You look at it, Kulikov's out of the lineup right now too. I mean, look, but we know they have Sergei Bobrovsky, 2-time Vezina Trophy winner there. This team, again, until the champs are knocked out, you can't bet against this team. They still have so much offensive firepower. Brad Marchand, obviously, again, Sam Bennett, Reinhart, all these guys, everybody's stepping up, and they know the system for 2 years, right? And that's how they just keep things going. One guy goes out, another guy comes in. They know the style of play they have to play. This is what they have to do. And, here we are. The champs still kicking around. They don't care where they finish. This is where they have to bank points, though, early in the season, because if they fall behind way too much, everybody's going to say, see, the injury's going to catch up with them. Maybe it will down the road. I mean, how many healthy, how many bodies can go down? How healthy can they be? Again, they know the style that they have to play. That's why I never count out the champs. I like what I'm seeing from Florida.
Absolutely. And Jim, you mentioned Brad Marchand filling the role still for the Panthers. It's Brad Marchand's old team that has been a pleasant surprise so far in the Boston Bruins, who are right there along with the Panthers and leading the Atlantic Division. Jim, you and I, everyone with half a brain in their heads said the Boston Bruins were going to struggle. Now, it's only 1 week. We could come back at this time next week and the Bruins could have lost 4 games in a row, 4 games in a row, and they could be in last place, or second to last place, because we all know Buffalo's got last place locked up already. But, Jim, 1 week in, Boston Bruins, they don't look too bad.
No, they don't. And why? Well, it's because the guy that's in between the pipes for them, Jeremy Swayman, well, he actually had training camp this year. He actually showed up on time, got work with the fellas, new group, again, new coach. Look, first of all, let's talk about the guy that's behind the bench, right? Mr. Marco Sturm. Remember what he did in Team Germany, the Olympics, second place, almost beat Russia? This guy's a good hockey coach. And I think that's what they kind of needed there. But again, if your number one goalie is going to play well, and they have Korpisalo as a backup, I didn't think he played bad against Tampa the other night. He's got to play better, no doubt. But you still have Pasternak there. Pavel Zacha is playing well on the wing. You add different guys into this lineup. Again, it's still early, but they're making noise, and maybe they can finish ahead of Ottawa, who's got some injury issues. Maybe they can sneak into a playoff spot. I doubt it, but again, it's a good start for a team that needed to have a good start, let's just say, because a lot of people thought, like you and I think, may not make the playoffs this year.
All right, well, Jim, you want to talk about teams who needed a good start, but are clearly not.
I know where you're going with this one, buddy.
The Buffalo Sabres, Jim, the fans, what is it, it's 3 games in? The fans are already wearing paper bags over their heads, throwing jerseys on the ice. Didn't Tage Thompson and Rasmus Dahlin say all offseason and before the season began that things needed to be different this year, that they needed to be better, they needed to show some marked improvement? Jim, Not only are they not showing marked improvement, not only are things not getting better. Look, I am a huge New York Jets fan over in the NFL. The New York Jets are 0-6. I have more faith in a game-by-game basis in the New York Jets than I do in the Buffalo Bills, in the Buffalo Sabres winning the game.
Yeah, well, the Buffalo Bills are struggling now, too. So, I mean, that ain't a good thing because at least they had one franchise that was good. Look, Buffalo Sabres need a complete culture change. I mean, you and I can agree. We kind of see it in New Jersey, right? Can't accept losing anymore. You got to figure out who you are. Buffalo is stuck in this, I don't know, rebuild, reconstruction. I don't know what you want to call it, but they're stuck in something that they can't get out, and there's a lot of good talent there and a lot of good talent left.
Happy purgatory.
They really are. I mean, it's gonna. I was joking facetiously when I was doing predictions last year, and I said I'm not even gonna. The Buffalo Sabres are gonna miss playoffs 14 and 15 straight years. I know Tage Thompson said after the game the other day, sky's not falling, a lot of runway left, but we've seen this from Buffalo. And Lindy Ruff, I'm sorry, that wasn't the right hire last year. They needed to bring in a different coach. The mindset has to change. Losing cannot be acceptable anymore. And the general manager, wrong choice for the GM. But again, they're stuck in this hamster wheel of fire GM, hire coach, fire coach, hire GM. Like this whole, the hamster wheel of death that is hurting the franchise. And I mean, look, you see it in NFL all the time. Cleveland Browns, Tennessee Titans. I mean, Jets, I'm sorry, but I don't want to poke fun at the Jets. I mean, the Giants are getting close to that hamster wheel too. But what I'm saying is there's the talent there, but the accountability in that room. Guys got to step up. We saw it with New Jersey for many years. When one thing goes bad, everything goes bad for this team. The injury to Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen before the year, just everything just snowballs for this team. And if they don't start games off the right way, it just snowballs. And I mean, look, I don't want to pile on because I like Buffalo Sabres and I want them to get back in the playoffs. I just don't see it happening.
No, I don't see it happening. Jim, you said, your prediction last year, 14 and 15 straight years. Jim, I'm saying 16, 17, 18, 19.
Wow. Are we going on 2 decades?
I'm going to say 20 straight years before they
that would be awful. No franchise should go through that. I'm sorry.
No, I feel for the fans. I really do. But
look, I got a question for you before we move on. I want serious question about this, about Buffalo real quick. Do you think it's time to potentially get a new ownership group in there to help and get the right hockey guys in there?
Jim, I'm going to go a step further than a new ownership group. The Buffalo Sabres, I almost said Bills again, the Buffalo Sabres should, with whatever delegation of executives, ownership, whatever, go into the National Hockey League offices at the Hudson Yards, have a meeting with Commissioner Gary Bettman and Deputy Commissioner Bill Daley and the Board of Governors. Say, here's our NHL charter in our hand, the formal document that they received. Say, we're handing it back. We are folding up the franchise. Gary, Bill, Board of Governors, we surrender all rights to the trademarks, to IP, all that stuff. You can go out, find a new Buffalo Sabres, and start literally from the ground up. Every single thing. And again, I know Tage Thompson's a good building block, and Rasmus Dahlin's a good building block, and Alex Tuch is a useful player, and the arena is a pretty decent arena, and so completely restart the Buffalo Sabres. Have them come in with a $750 million expansion fee that will get split amongst the other 31 owners, and do just that. Okay. That's what you have to do. Okay. So the new ownership, what's the new ownership going to do? They're going to clean house by having a new GM, a new front office, and a new head coach. You still have the players on the ice and the minor league system, which clearly hasn't worked out. You can't fire 23 players off the NHL roster. And again, as we said, you would want to keep a Dahlin and a Thompson and a Tuch. You can't make all the moves that you would need to make in a short order. You need to just fold up and completely start anew.
So completely bail. Just bail on it and just say it's over.
Yeah, and the players who are under contract right now, let them go into
the portal.
Not even a portal. Let them. All their contracts will remain as what they are, or they can elect free agency. But let's try to keep things somewhat simple here in this crazy hypothetical. They have their contracts as what they are. All 31 teams who remain have the chance to bid on them in a setting where the bid does not, so if let's say the Vegas Golden Knights said, okay, we want to bid $10 million for Tage Thompson. Tage Thompson, whatever his contract number is, remains that. And if that $10 million is the highest figure, then the Vegas Golden Knights pay $10 million to the National Hockey League as part of hockey-related revenue.
I like it.
Jim, the amount of money that the salary cap will jump to $130 million because they'll surpass $8 billion in revenue easily doing something like this.
I agree with that. I think that would be
awesome. And the Players Association has no reason to hate it because all the players' contracts remain as they are.
That's true. That's very true. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Right.
So, look, I like it. Sorry, Sabres fans, but you might have been exiled. Who else you got on your surprising and disappointment list?
Well, Jim, can one team be both a surprise and a disappointment?
I think so. We make the rules, so yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to try to say it quickly. The New York Islanders, they've, as of the recording of this show, they're 0-3.
Not
which
good.
Is a disappointment.
Yes.
Major disappointment.
Yes.
They're having trouble scoring.
Yeah.
Which means, they've been bad defensively. All the
outside of Schaefer.
Yeah, hold on. I'm going to get to Schaefer in a minute.
All right.
Okay.
Spoiler.
Everyone said, oh, we're going to need, the Islanders are going to need to win games 5-4. Us ourselves even said they're going to need to win games 5-4. Jim, they're not scoring 5, and they're not only giving up 4. So they're a disappointment. But Matthew Schaefer, and I mean, I don't know how much of a surprise the number 1 overall pick can be, but Jim, he's tied with Connor McDavid for like the 4th most, bursts of 20+ mile per hour speeds through his first 3 games. He's got at least a point in all 3 games. The kid's been unbelievable. He's been playing heavy minutes. They have not been sheltering him. This is not a kid who's only getting 15 minutes a night, 16 minutes a night. He's been well over 20 minutes every night. Jim, I think he's exceeding the early expectations. And I know that, number 1 overall pick, it's a foregone conclusion. He's going to be in the Calder Trophy race. And I know a lot of people were picking, Demidov, or however you pronounce the name, and, to potentially win in the Calder. I know I myself in my season preview said that Michael Misa would win in the Calder. I think if Matthew Schaefer, and again, this could be a massive overreaction only 1 week into the season, if Matthew Schaefer continues at this pace, he's going to win the Calder.
Yeah.
Hands down.
100%. 100%. He's going to win it. Look, I thought the Islanders would be a better team. Again, it's 3 games, can't panic. But if they can't score, and Ilya Sorokin's going to be average at best right now, average, they're going to struggle. And they're going to struggle mightily. Offensively, we thought they would be better. They're not. Again, it's 3 games, can't panic. But I like what I'm seeing from Schaefer playing heavy minutes. That's a good thing for this team. Unfortunately, they got to figure out a way to change things down. Look, I'll say this. I think maybe they need a stern talking to, because I'll say this thing. I like what I'm seeing from Detroit. Tom McClellan ripped into his team. They're playing a lot better. So hopefully things can turn around in Motown. But I think when we reconvene on our next episode, I think we may have some more surprises and disappointments to talk about. I got a couple I want to add, but I'm going to hold off because I want a little bit more of a sample size. How about that?
Look, you're always leaving wanting more. And I will say this. If there's anybody at all in the National Hockey League behind the bench who can rip into their players just by blowing his stat, I mean, Jim, Patrick Waugh. Like,
Yeah, he could. He can. I know he can because he's done it.
If there's someone who can rip into their team, it's Patrick Waugh.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. So hopefully for the sake of Islanders fans, they can turn it around. Again, still early into the season, so don't have too many overreactions right now. But hopefully some teams that people think are playoff teams can turn it around. Maybe other guys come back to the pack. We're going to see what happens. But, guys, it was a jam-packed Blue Line Blast podcast. David Dwork, Hockey News, Florida Panthers. Great interview as always. Friend of yours, friend of mine, friend of everybody. It was great to see him last week as well. But this has been the Blue Line Blast podcast. Jim Biringer, Matthew Blittner. Guys, take care.